Hello. If you're someone who, in your professional life, as a writer, director, or producer, has to determine whether or not a screenplay is ready for production, this series will show you a way to evaluate the cohesiveness of your story on the most fundamental level. I'm Janine Lanouette, and I've been teaching story structure analysis in colleges, adult ed programs, and production companies such as Pixar and Lucasfilm for over 20 years. Now, I'm converting my decades of experience analyzing screenplays into digital tools and courses that you can participate in no matter where you are. In case you're just joining in, I started the series with a mini analysis of Bong Joon-ho's Parasite. Then my second video was about Lulu Wang's The Farewell. So now I'm finishing out the series with Todd Phillips' Joker for a trio of films from that very fertile year of 2019. Hopefully you've seen Joker, but if you haven't, maybe this video will motivate you to. The goal in these videos is to demonstrate that when you study the A to B progressions in masterful screenplays, you'll begin to understand how they work in your own screenplay. So if you haven't already, be sure to watch the two previous videos as well. We've seen how character can function in service to a theme story in Parasite. We've also seen how external plot can coerce a character change in The Farewell. What if you're interested in deep exploration of character, but you also want to have a strong overarching theme? How do you make sure you're not sacrificing one to the other? That's what Todd Phillips was interested in doing with Joker. He wanted to explore an origin story for that infamous character, but he also wanted to make a statement about the costs of an uncaring world. So let's look at how he did that. The action through line of the story, in other words, the plot, begins with professional clown Arthur Fleck being jumped by a gang of street toughs and beaten up in an alley, prompting a co-worker to give him a gun for his protection. He drops it in a hospital children's ward, which gets him fired. Riding the subway, he's attacked by a group of Wall Street toughs, but this time he's packing, so he takes out his gun and shoots them. This downward spiral is what starts him on the road to becoming Joker. That journey is ultimately fulfilled when he embodies the Joker identity in makeup and costume and dances down the sidewalk steps on his way to appear on the Murray Franklin Show. But where he's going with this new identity is not entirely clear until he expresses it in action by shooting Murray Franklin on the air. Thus, the plot story begins with Arthur being given a gun and using it in self-defense, for which he is vilified. And it ends with Joker using the gun to take revenge in the most violent public way possible, for which he is made a hero. A pretty straight line from A to B in plot terms. I would lay it out this way. A, attacked on the street by hoodlums, is given a gun for self-protection. B, uses his gun to take revenge on Murray Franklin for mocking and exploiting him. In contrast to Parasite, which has a circular plot structure with the Kim family ending up essentially back where they started, except considerably worse off, in Joker we see a much greater circumstantial distance traveled. At the beginning, Arthur is being attacked, isolated, and relatively helpless. By the end, he is on the attack and supported by a riot of angry street protesters. That's the plot. When we start looking at character, things get more complicated. Being that this film is an origin story for a deviant character, it is at its core a character study. The question it poses is not simply where did Joker come from, as in Superman came from a planet called Krypton that was on the brink of annihilation, so his parents put him in a spaceship that landed him in a Kansas cornfield. No, not that kind of where did he come from. The question that writer-director Todd Phillips poses is, what are the forces and influences that could create such an unboundedly evil person? The answer he puts forth is as much about emotional origins as it is circumstantial ones. And it pulls no punches in painting a grim picture of the conditions Arthur Fleck was raised in. The first thing we learn about Arthur's inner life is that he has a psychiatric diagnosis and was recently hospitalized. He still doesn't feel well, so he asks his case manager for more medication, which she begrudgingly provides. He lives with and cares for his mother, who is infirmed. He is an aspiring stand-up comedian who fantasizes about appearing on the Murray Franklin Show.
What's your name?
He flirts with a neighbor by exchanging suicide pantomimes. In the course of the story, He is abandoned by the mental health care system, loses access to his medication, is mocked by his idol Murray Franklin, learns his mother was delusional, then learns she severely abused him. He terrifies his neighbor, and in a last straw, is betrayed by his coworker who gave him the gun. What is the ultimate effect all this has on him? He reaches his pinnacle of ambition as a guest on the Murray Franklin Show, but uses it to discharge all his rage about a lifetime of neglect and abuse by exacting revenge on the most prominent of all the people who have abused him.
Society that abandons him and treats him like trash! Call the police!
Here's how I would sum up the character A to B. A, mentally ill loner, victim of violent aggression. B, vengeful antihero, perpetrator of violent aggression. Whereas at the beginning, Arthur is a victim and a nobody, by the end, he has become a hero. Or, in the parlance of literary narrative, an anti-hero. But the resonance of this film extends even further than the sensationalism of its plot and the tragic inner journey of its main character. The surrounding world that takes up the background of the story is on its own journey. The very first thing we are told as the film opens is that the city is in a state of emergency due to a garbage strike.
Health Commissioner Edward O'Rourke is declaring a citywide state of emergency for the first time in decades. There's no need to wait.
There is a growing tension in the city that is initially reported to us only through dialogue.
Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
It is certainly tense.
It is unseen, but we get the idea that, nonetheless, everyone knows it's there. We hear it bubbling up to the surface in a TV news broadcast.
Groundswell of anti-rich sentiment in the city. It's almost as if our less fortunate residents are taking the side of the killer.
Then, at the midpoint of the story, the unseen tension finally becomes visible on TV.
Protesters, many dressed as clowns, took to the streets today in one of several planned demonstrations taking on the city's elite, including a massive rally outside tomorrow night's benefit at Wayne Hall.
This comes at one of Arthur's lowest moments, after he's been mocked on TV by his idol Murray Franklin.
Well, no one's laughing now.
You can say that again, pal.
Seeing the protesters motivates him to put himself among them. He soaks up their excitement, bolstering his courage for confronting Thomas Wayne. But we hear little more about the growing social tension until Arthur is visited by former co-workers Randall and Gary.
Come on in.
And they ask if he's joining the City Hall protests.
Oh, you must be going down to that rally at City Hall. I hear it's gonna be nuts.
The protesters prove to be useful cover for getting lost in the crowd when the cops are after him on the subway. The crowd becomes an externalization of Arthur's own baser instincts by taking down the cops as he walks away unperturbed. Once again, Arthur is unintentionally responsible for escalating the rebellion. Finally, he commits an unthinkably aggressive act, and it serves as the final match on the bonfire of social discontent. We can notate the social progression this way. A, anger and resentment are brewing in response to the garbage strike. B, the collective rage has erupted. The city is on fire. So, this is not only an origin story. It is also a cautionary tale that imagines a world which is itself changed. The film tells us this is what can happen in a society in which people are abused and neglected on both an individual and collective scale. We've seen the individual abuse that brought Arthur to this point. All he wants is to be acknowledged, respected, and afforded his humanity. We can assume the same applies with the protesters and rioters. The victim-to-perpetrator progression in the character story is set against a long, simmering explosion of anger in the wider world. If you want a more thorough description of how I analyze separate action, character, and theme storylines, be sure to watch my video, How to Make Your Screenplay Stand Out, in which I discuss Adam McKay's Don't Look Up, for its powerful theme story that is supported by an engaging action story. Click on the link in the description below. And of course, if you found this video useful, please give it a like and feel free to share it with your friends. See you next time.